Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Linda, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes a Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message and meditation today comes from Reverend Kelly Isola. Kelly is passionate about supporting people and organizations to live and love more authentically, to move forward toward a better version of themselves so they can make their mark on the world. She is masterful at relating concepts across her various life experiences, which allows her to connect with and support audiences from all walks of life. Reverend Kelly shares her passion for living the twofold path of an engaged spiritual life, embracing the inner path of wisdom, as well as demonstrating the outer path of compassionate service in order to experience healing, healing and transformation through the wholeness of the human experience. And now here is Reverend Kelly. Thank you.
Whew, that was close call. All of a sudden, everything, not everything, lots of things that make this, what we're doing right now, possible, went on the fritz, right? So interesting that my talk title is Remembering to Rise. Because as inside, I'm a little frantic, or a little bit, I'm sure nobody listening has ever experienced that. Ah, that's actually an emotion. It's like AAGGHHH. Um, I maybe you guys might be in the habit of turning your videos off, but I'd actually love it if you turned them on so I can see some faces, so I can connect with some people. I don't want to upset your rules and regulations, but just asking. Um, so my talk time, thank you. So I have today and next Sunday, I'm going to be with you. And it's, overall, the freedom is a spiritual practice, right? We tend to think of freedom as like a noun, but it's really a spiritual practice. And I'm building it around Juneteenth, which is June 19th, because today's the 15th, next is the 22nd. So in between is June 19th. And so what this talk is, the Remembering to Rise, is, a celebration of emancipation and delayed liberation, both historically and spiritually. While I'm not a Black person, and so Juneteenth is really more of a historical event in my lived experience. I also can connect to the spiritual idea of emancipation. The idea, because not everybody necessarily knows the history of Juneteenth, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, so you can kind of see, part of the story is liberation being postponed, externally. And, I also want to teach from a spiritual perspective that it's never extinguished within, and I think the centuries of enslavement and centuries of racism, which is still going on, shows us that freedom and liberation is never extinguished, although it may look so on the outside. Inside, it is kept alive, as evidenced by yesterday, No King's Day, right? it's kept alive, freedom and liberation. And it doesn't mean it's always easy, doesn't mean it happens, could be very delayed. But so I'm gonna reflect on, kind of talk about remembering truth, reclaiming our power. Not that we ever lost it to reclaim, we just forgot, or we didn't know how to have power with. Right? When I use the word power, I'm not talking about power over. That one we know. More people than me have a better understanding of power over any marginalized communities. But I'm talking about power with, right? Power with me. Power. I'm fully divine. I am wisdom. I am love. I am zeal. It's not that God is in me. I am these aspects of God. I'm not the totality, but I am. And that's what we're needing to reclaim. And that's when I say remembering to rise. I'm talking about remembering to rise to our divine identity, right? Remembering to rise to our divine identity. Because Juneteenth, it is a very powerful historical event that needs to be talked about, needs to be taught, needs to be acknowledged. But it's also a mirror for all of us. It's a mirror that asks us, where in my life has freedom been delayed, distorted, denied? Where have I taken on, when I've had a sometimes we're held in bondage and we don't even know it. Like we take it as normal, or bondage may be, or just held, limited, right? We do it to ourselves and others do it and we don't even know. So we go, well, okay. And it just sort of, passes by. Um, and we have kind of accepted oftentimes that as normal. And so today I'm going to confront some ways that we've internalized that, the limitations, whether they're inherited, right? Like how many of us probably may have to think about it a little bit, but I don't know about you, but I grew up where there were times when I would hear from a parent or a teacher or some grown up or adult, oh, well, you probably can't do that because blah, 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 blah. Right? Like if you can't tell from the video, I'm Rubenesque, right? I'm curvy. And have always been a little. So growing up, so when it came to gym class, um, I was, so somebody will have to correct me, but I was always, when it came to softball, let's stick her in right field. I think that's right field where nobody ever hits a ball, right? So let's put her there because she can't really do, and nobody came out and said, you can't do it, but we're going to put you in right field because people don't often hit balls there. Well, what the heck do you think the message is behind that? And I'm just like, okay, I should just be grateful that I get to play it all, right? Yeah, that's a load of crap. It's a spiritual term. It's okay to say it. I think it's okay to say it. So I want to look at some of our, internalized limitation, the inherited beliefs, and spiritual bypassing, right? We do a lot of things get uncomfortable and we're like, oh, let's go to prayer or let's go to bypass the discomfort, to bypass needing to look at conditioning, needing to look at unexamined unconscious assumptions that, it's not just that freedom's waiting, something we wait on. It's, we awaken to it. It's not self-activating. We have to actually activate it, but we have to be awake, right? We have to recognize what it is. Next week, I'm going to talk a little bit more about liberation. But I want to, so this is kind of about a conversation. I will at times be, asking, ask some questions that aren't always rhetorical. It's one of my favorite things to do is actually, the homiletics is the technical term for Sunday talks, Sunday preaching. But the word itself, the root of the word, part of the root of the word means conversation. So it's not just I talk this way and y'all have to sit there and suffer through listening, or bring your needlepoint so you can do that while I'm, what I do, I confess, I doodle when I'm listening, but it actually helps me. So I know a lot of people will crochet or doodle or something, but that was like a squirrel moment, like, ooh, shiny object. But it is a conversation. So I will periodically ask questions. And I know that this is also live stream on YouTube. So if anybody here or is watching on, the live stream, and I ask a question and you want to contribute an answer, please do so. I can't see the YouTube, so maybe somebody here in our little Zoom room, if one does pop up, just tell me. You don't have to answer them, but this is a conversation. Healing is not a solitary event. We have been taught in Unity to go within and do healing, be in your silo, do your healing, and then come back out to the world. But believe it or not, healing is communal. Not that we don't have our individual work to do, but healing is a communal thing. So it's not, so I want to give just a brief history of Juneteenth, and while it's, its history, its event is about liberation. It's also a reminder of liberation for ourselves, not as a political slogan or, some historical footnote, but as a daily spiritual practice. It really is a daily spiritual practice. And so today I just want to start with just a little about memory. So on June 19th, 1865, more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. So let me put it in this context. It's June 2025. What were you doing in June 2023? Can you even remember? Right? Yeah, I know. I'm with you, Linda. I'm like, yeah, I don't even remember breakfast yesterday. So yeah, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, enslaved people in Galveston, Texas, finally heard the news that they were legally free. 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the news arrives in Galveston, Texas, that enslaved people were now legally free. And the law had already changed. The truth had already been spoken in terms of this is, Emancipation Proclamation. The law had already changed on the books, but here's these people in Galveston that had never been told, that had no idea. So let that sink in for a moment, right? Something that about your entire life changed, but you wait 2 years to even know. So for 2 years, you continue on in your enslavement, not knowing. So you're for 2 years carrying chains and bondage and, not even consciously perhaps thinking this is how it is, without knowing it wasn't yours to carry anymore for 2 years. So imagine being free but not informed, right? Or one way I think about it, so imagine you're in a wheelchair and for 2 years, turns out medical folks said you were able to walk, but nobody told you. So you've been in a wheelchair for 2 years. So that's what Juneteenth asks us to reckon with, amongst other things. But it's not just a freedom denied by others, it's the way that freedom is delayed inside us because we carry that on. So we're born free, each of us. We may not know that. We have that saying in the teaching that, created in the image and likeness of the divine, and yet we forget, or we've never been told, or we were told, but nobody actually explained what that meant. That's kind of my case. Like when I got to Unity, well, actually, even before that, first time I heard you're created in the image and likeness, I'm like, okay, like, what does that mean? Like, don't you have to tell me what God looks like or what the divine looks like first? Because I know it's not some guy in a white robe with a big gold G on the front, sitting on a cloud with a beard, passing out, miracles or passing out whatever somebody's praying for. Maybe, depending on the whim of the guy in the white robe with the big gold G. So and if we've never been told, then we're operating in the dark, right? We're operating in a place where the truth has now hidden under generations because if we teach like truth with a capital T, that we're created in the image and likeness of the divine, which we are, that's what I said at the beginning, right? It's not that God is inside me like a raisin in a bun. I am those aspects. I am love. I am wisdom. I am, that's my divine nature. Um, so, but it gets hidden if we've not been told, and the generations before us have not been told, then it's just hidden under there. It's hidden under shame. It's hidden under survival, right? So we're still bound to something without even knowing that we're bound to it. We're bound to old beliefs. We're bound to old roles, to systems, to stories, right? That do not honor who we truly are. Um, so part of Unity teaching, and one of the reasons I, was when I first came to Unity, I went to my first Unity service. Many people, I think, have this sense, and I've heard it over and over. When I came to Unity, I felt like I was home, right? And not even necessarily being able to define what home meant, but the whole being just kind of went, ugh, right? This kind of, and maybe could explain a few things. And in time, we learn. Um, but kind of many of us taught that, oh, you know what? You're not broken. I get maybe someone taught you that. Like, there's no such thing as original sin, right? Our teaching is original blessing. I never understood original sin. That's another one I never understood. I'm like, wait, if I'm a 6-month-old baby, what sin have I done? Like, I didn't finish off my bottle. I didn't cry I didn't cry quick enough when my diaper needed to be changed. Like, I just never, even as a 5-year-old, it never made sense to me, which is, probably why I'm such a theologian. Like, we discovered in Unity that we're not broken, we're not lacking, and we do live like we are. We do live like we are. Scarcity consciousness is alive and well in Unity, and we may not realize it, but it's so here's one of my, what you'll discover this week and next week is, I got no problem calling attention to the spiritual bypassing or the hiccups or the incongruencies or cognitive dissonance that goes on in Unity, because I'm like, well, let's get clear, right? So we want to call out the passive spirituality that ignores injustice, or uses terms like oneness, but we're all one, to actually avoid difference. Because difference is a good thing. Difference is a good thing. I'm sorry, I don't know about you, but I am not interested in a homogenous group of people. No, thank you. It's why years ago I stopped using the term like-minded people. I don't, I have a pretty good idea what you mean by that. However, what gets communicated is that you need to think like me to be part of this community. No, not for this girl. I don't want like-minded people. I just want you. And if we're not of like mind, that's fine. We can learn from each other and have expanded minds. Imagine that. We could actually learn from each other and expand our own teachings. If you think you know unity in this time, in this place. Unity teachings are, by very nature, they're evolutionary, which means Charles Fillmore said, God is individually formed in the consciousness of each person. Well, okay, so we have 8 billion plus gods, ideas of God wandering around the globe. All right. Works for me. Let me find out. It'll take me a lifetime to learn them all. But I don't want just like-minded. So I can assume what that means. And I certainly don't want somebody with the mind of racism regularly coming in, or white survivalist that's going to be violent. That's not what I'm talking about. But I don't need you to think the way I do about everything. I need you to be in integrity with what you believe and me in what I believe, so we can be in conversation, so we can celebrate the difference, because it just makes everything bigger, better, richer, right? So, it's we have we're familiar with in the Gospel of John, the words that are in chapter 8, the words that are attributed to Jesus when that say, you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. It doesn't say the truth will be handed to you, right? It's not that freedom's going to be delivered by somebody else. Remember, I just said it's not self-executing, it's not self-activating. But you'll know, right? And knowing is that inward piece, and it's intimate and it's spiritual, but it's remembering that you are a radical act of awakening to, oh, yeah, I will know that truth, and the truth will set me free, and I got to do something about it. Like, that's not sort of the end of the thought. Just because we say, it will make you free. Okay, great. If that doesn't mean sit here and wait. Okay, well, who's delivering it so I can be free? The good news and the bad news. You're delivering it. That's the good news. You are. The bad news is you're delivering it. So we need to get up off our affirmations and actually be in the spiritual practice of it. And part of the spiritual practice is knowing who told us that you weren't free. Somebody told us along the line that we weren't free. And I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, but somewhere along the line, we're taught not to dream or dream a little smaller, right? My dad was really good at that. You could do this, but like, don't shoot too high, because then you might. And I understood now I understand, like, don't shoot too high because I don't want you to fail. Then you'll feel hurt. I don't want my daughter to be hurt. Well, then say all that, because instead the message you send is, don't shoot that high because you're not equipped. Every child does that. Every child. We don't have as a little kid, the ability to think through all that. So some of us were taught not to dream, not to speak, not to lead, that some of us were taught that our voice, our body, our blackness, our queerness, our womanhood, that those differences were problematic. But that was never the voice of God, or what I would say, the voice of your most noble self. Never, never. So we have to unlearn that kind of domination that was taught to us. And I use that word on purpose, domination, because it is a domination. It's a power over. It doesn't necessarily mean somebody's trying to harm me, but there is a power over when someone tells me why I can't do something, or why I shouldn't, or, well, you need to make sure you're ready for this. I have a couple of friends that when we plan something, and I know what type they are on the Enneagram, that is really good at this. But when we're planning something, they go down the road of planning for every contingency of failure. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't. Some things you can just, leave up to chance. Like, it's fun to figure out as you go along. Like this morning. Okay, it's 10:59 and I got no internet. Oh, well, you can only control the controllables. So, well, thank God I have a phone. So it's about Bell Hooks. If you know who Bell Hooks is, she's deceased now, but revolutionary, racial justice leader, philosopher, poet, speaker. She just phenomenal. Look her up, Bell Hooks. She said that the function of art is to do more than tell it like it is. It's to imagine what is possible. The function of art is to do more than tell it like it is. It's to imagine what is possible. So to imagine what is possible is, I got to also get what's in the way, right? If I think from the state of consciousness I'm at right now, I'll imagine what's possible. And it's even greater when I can, remember that, that actually I am divine. When I can remember, remember that I've forgotten that, first of all, and that any domination or anybody who told me I wasn't free, it's not my fault. However, remembering is now my sacred responsibility. I'm not a little kid anymore, right? I'm a grown adult. So remembering my divine nature, remembering that was never the voice of my noble self, but now it's my responsibility. Now it's my sacred responsibility. And again, that's like the good news and the bad news. The good news is, oh, it's my sacred responsibility. Oh, crap, it's my sacred responsibility, right? I don't know about you, but I have days or moments where I'm like, yeah, I don't want to self-reflect anymore. I'm good. I'm all set. No more self-reflecting. It's like the giant paradox in unity, the good news and the bad news. We get here, oh, I'm home, and we're told that we're not broken and we're loved just as we are. And then, we kind of move along and then wait 6 months or 9 months. And here, you need to take this class on how to transform yourself. But wait, I thought you just said I was good just as I was. But now you want me to transform myself. Like, because it's both, right? But there's often these paradoxes that are kind of built in. That are sometimes, it's the good news and the quote unquote bad news. But yeah, it is a sacred responsibility that we all is our responsibility. Okay, so I'm not keeping track of time. Here's a squirrel moment. I'm not keeping track of time, so somebody needs to go. Okay, you're done, Kelly. Um, and so I just want to take a moment. Here's the question parts, right? About an inner emancipation, right? An inner emancipation. Um, the minute that we choose to love, the minute that we choose joy, especially joy is bumps up hard against domination. Joy bumps up hard against power over. Joy bumps up hard against authoritarianism. Joy bumps up hard at dehumanization. So joy is an incredibly powerful choice. So to choose that is to move against domination, is to move against oppression, is to move against whoever told you you weren't free. And I don't mean, again, I'm not trying to, when I'm picking on parents and adults and ever who raised us, I'm not trying to denigrate them. They did what they did, and now it's mine to do with what's mine to do with. But the moment that we choose those, we move against domination and we move toward freedom. That's what makes freedom a spiritual practice, because it's moving, right? So, okay, um, you know, where is there joy? Where am I choosing to perpetuate what I've been told, the story, to tell the story again? Do I hear myself saying to my own children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews or children around me why they can't or shouldn't or, be on the lookout for, instead of allowing them to, maybe it's okay to fall on their face? Not all the time. We like to keep people safe, right? So here's a question. Where in my life have I accepted something as just the way it is? Take a minute. And if you find yourself Rolodexing your brain, put your hand on your heart and say, where in my life have I accepted something? Because that's just the way it is. And sometimes we say that in great resignation, like we're just done. I'm tired. That's just the way it is. And sometimes we say it because I'm up against this huge, you know, monolith of well, that's like capitalism, right? Well, that's how it is. Feeling powerless, right? Or helpless. So where in my life has I accepted something as just the way it is? Another question is, where have I let someone else define my worth, define my voice, or my role? Where have I let someone else define my worth, define my voice, define my role? And then finally, and this is really a good one for put your hand on your heart. It's not a Rolodex, the brain thing. But what truth within me has been waiting to be remembered? What truth within me has been waiting to be remembered? Close your eyes for a moment and just sink into that. What truth within me is waiting to be remembered? And here I'll throw another sort of wrench in there. If you think about the word remember, think about it as re-dash membering. So there's all these members, right, of me, all these pieces of myself that are kind of, think fireflies, they're just kind of out and about. So to remember means to bring them all together. Remembering. So to remember is to sort of bring the pieces of me together and see that whole. Like, oh, there I am. Oh, that's me in my wholeness. Oh, that's not my voice. Oh, I remember who I am and I rise in truth. When I say remembering to rise, it's not always, some people aren't physically able to rise. Rise is not necessarily a physical thing, but rise in spirit, right? Rise in awakening, right? I remember who and what I am, and I rise in that truth. Do we take this into meditation? Yeah. So take a breath. Big inhale and an exhale. Drop the shoulders a little bit. Relax into whatever you're sitting on or laying on, or whether it's a floor, a bed, a chair. And just allow your body to sink into it. And just pay attention to the breath. You don't have to change it. You don't have to slow it down or speed it up. Just follow the breath. Knowing that the breath that we are sharing together is a collective act of solidarity. It's a collective act of recognizing that God, spirit, the divine, whatever word you use, is formed in the consciousness of each person, right? So we do that collectively, which allows everybody to be at the table, to be at the altar. So take a deep breath and stretch the shoulders back, kind of stretching yourself wide, and affirm for yourself, I make space for joy, truth, and my full self. I make space for joy, truth, and my full self. Because my full self is my divine nature. My divine nature, that it's not that wisdom is in me. I am wisdom. I am fully divine. I am joy, even when I forget. So take a deep breath in. As you breathe in, I receive liberation. As I exhale, I live free. Hold that in the quiet. With every inhale, I receive liberation. With every exhale, I live free. Knowing freedom is a spiritual practice to embody, not just freeing myself, but someone else. I remember the sacred fire within me, and I rise. I remember the sacred fire within me, and I rise. Let's hold that in the quiet. I remember the sacred fire within me. I remember I am joy. I am wisdom. I am compassion. I am love. And I rise. Amen. If there's something I'm supposed to do next, I don't remember, and I didn't pull up the order in front of me. Somebody needs to help me out and free me.
Okay, this is Linda. Thank you, Reverend Kelly. And thank you all for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.